Hello, my sweet friends. Welcome back. Today, I am diving into a topic around receiving. Why? Because I want it to be easy for you to receive. Receive all of the good stuff. Receive joy, receive pleasure, receive wealth, receive money, receive, positive acknowledgments, all of that. I want it to be easy for you to receive. And what I have come to understand is that we have a collective trauma around receiving. Now, the way it might show up is you notice for you, it might be really easy for you to earn. You have no problem earning, but it's really hard for you to have, or it's really hard for you to receive. What I have noticed also is that, many of the students, my clients that I work with, have no problem working hard, but again, feel really uncomfortable when they perceive that what they get, what they are receiving is coming easy or like they didn't earn it. So again, working hard is easy, earning feels easy, but having or receiving can feel really uncomfortable. So we're going to dive into why this is. And of course, we're going to go deep into the history. I'm going to talk about what's happening in our brains, physiologically, scientifically, what's happening. And we're going to talk about what to do about it because I want you to leave this episode today knowing that if you have noticed that it's hard for you to have, it's hard for you to receive, I want you to know again, you're not alone. It's not necessarily your fault, and there's something that you can do about it. Okay, so let's dive in. Why is this a problem? So, number one, I think if you are listening to this podcast, you likely have a value of humility. You really value being humble. And there is this fear that if we receive, especially when it comes to the acknowledgments, when someone tells us, you did a great job, and we say, oh, thank you, as opposed to like, oh, yeah, but it was a team effort, or it's not just me, or when someone acknowledges you for the impact that you've made, you created a program, you have a project, and it had a tremendous impact. Or, somebody is giving you money or, the right amount of financial reimbursement for something that you did. There's a fear that if you receive that, you might be perceived as arrogant or just less humble. Whew, let me tell you, that's real. And what's funny is I had drafted this podcast episode about a week ago, and I hadn't recorded it yet because something wasn't sitting right with me. And I realized today that there was a part of me that knew that there was part of this podcast episode wasn't coming from my whole truth. Something was missing, and I wasn't exactly sure what it was. And then, of course, the universe always gives me exactly what I need, whether that's a teacher, an experience, a conversation, or a lesson. I always get what I need. And here's what I had to reckon with. I actually had to reckon with receiving myself. I thought I had done all my work around receiving. I thought I was a wide open receiver. And yesterday, I had the opportunity to travel to Dallas to speak with a large group of physician leaders. And I get there, and there's at least, I don't know, over 70 people in the room. And, I'm used to talking to large groups of people. I talk on stage a lot. I'm an executive leadership coach. I do this a lot. And I go up and I give my talk. And part of me was a little uncomfortable because the majority of the people in the room, like 90%, were going to be men. And I knew I was talking about feelings. And so there's a part of me that was like, uh-oh, how is this going to be received? Anyway, it turned out it was great. So I give my talk. And at the very end of my talk was supposed to be 50 minutes, but here we are over 30 minutes over, and people are so engaged and they're asking all these questions. And it turns out to be really well received. And after I'm done with the talk, this person stands up from the audience and he comes to the front of the room and he asks the guy that's leading the entire event, he asks if he can just share a personal story with the audience. And the person that got up to talk was one of the leaders in the room who had been in my very first, I created this coaching program for physician leaders a couple years ago, and he was in the very first cohort of that coaching program. And I had only ever met him virtually on Zoom because we had run these on Zoom because there were people from all over the country. And so I didn't initially recognize him when he got on stage, but he started talking, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know him. Anyway, he had gotten, since our program, he had gotten promoted. And so he was a very influential leader in that space. And he had gotten up to share his experience working with me. And he gave this really powerful, heartfelt, testimonial that again was just off the cuff. And he was raw and he was authentic. And he was telling the group, again, primarily men, how he was struggling before we started working together. He painted this picture of how tough, he was like a leader, and he was a department chief and a medical director, and he was a father and a wife, and a father and a husband, and how just where he was in his life and how difficult the department was that he was leading, all those types of things. And then he shares how the work that he and I did together transformed his life. He said, it changed my life. And then he starts talking about where he is now and how he got promoted and his relationship with his wife and with his kids and how he coaches his kids' teams and he's really effective at what he does at work. All of these things he was saying. And just, I was sitting there and I thought I was receiving them. I was like, wow, thank you. I receive. Like, I thought I was really receiving them. Uh, but what I realized after is that there was a part of me that was still really resistant to the impact that my work had had. And the impact in these programs that I do, we measure them, we use really specific metrics and we make sure that they're being effective. And all of everything that we use to measure shows us how effective the programs are and how impactful they've been. And there was still a part of me, I realized, that hadn't fully received that, hadn't fully received that acknowledgement and the impact that my work was making. I realized I was really resistant to that. And so I started to reflect. I was like, holy smokes, here I am thinking I was a wide open receiver, and there was still a part of me that was resistant to fully receiving how impactful my programs have been. And when he was sharing that, there was still a part of me, oof, I'm getting teary eyed right now thinking about it. There's still a part of me that was feeling that. Wow. And so I was like, uh-huh, this is why this is why I hadn't I hadn't published this episode yet, why I hadn't recorded it, because there was some work I had to do around safety to receive still. Wow. And it's so funny because my initial thoughts when I first drafted this episode was that the examples I was going to use was all about money, about receiving money. But the truth is that the energy of receiving is universal. Whether you're receiving money, receiving positive accolades, receiving the impact of your work, the energy is the same. And so when we feel safe to receive, it's universal. It opens us up to be able to receive a wide range of things, as simple as a compliment. So think about that. So when you deflect a compliment, you are also making it more difficult for you to receive everything else you want in life: joy, pleasure, financial abundance, all of it. You're making it more difficult for you to receive. All right. So just quickly to wrap up the story, I'm grateful that the universe gave me this opportunity yesterday to go and talk to this big group and witness the impact my work has had on so many people. But not just that, also to witness how uncomfortable I was receiving it, so that I can be with that and I can heal that part of me and really be able to acknowledge that it's safe for me to receive in every aspect, including the impact that my work has had. Because allowing myself to do that means that today, recording this episode means that I get to come to you with the most authentic expression of my truth today. All right, sweet friends. So let's dive in a little bit more. Why is it hard to receive? Okay. Well, again, number one, there's fear. Fear that if we receive, I shared this initially, it may make us arrogant and that we should be humble, or it may make us lazy and we should be hard workers. Fear that if we receive, what if it makes us stop wanting to work, to improve, or to grow because, people tell us that we're doing so good and now we believe it. Like, what if we no longer want to be the best expressions of ourselves or continue to work hard? Ultimately, a lot of fear based reasons that are blocking us from receiving. And the fear based reasons, if you notice, they're all cloaked in virtuous characteristics. We want to be humble. We want to be hard workers. We want to continue to improve and be better versions of ourselves. And many of us think that if we receive the good stuff, we're all of a sudden that's gonna be taken away from us. So listen, being humble, I'm going to just talk about each one of these. Let's start with humility, because I know if you're listening to this, humility probably really matters to you. And the assumption that if we acknowledge our impact, for example, if we acknowledge how impactful our work has been, that it's going to make us less humble is actually flawed. And here's how I see this. When someone gives us positive feedback, when someone says, wow, you did a really good job, there's two ways to take that in. Number one, we can take that in. Three ways, right? We can deflect it, not take it in at all. Number two, we can take it in with deep gratitude. We can really feel that in our bones. And for me, this is how I process it now, that I know that what I created, that positive impact I had, I know it was not just me. That doesn't mean that I dishonor the work that I did. No, the opposite. I honor my work. I honor my sacredness, my journey to get me here today, everything I've been able to heal, to process, everything I've been able to learn, to incorporate into my life. I honor that. That is what's brought me here. The pain, the suffering, all of it has brought me here. So I honor the sacredness of my work. But my ability to make a difference and have an impact also means that I get to honor the sacredness of the people that I work with. I honor the sacredness of my clients. I honor their resilience, their choice to change their lives, their courage to choose something different, their journey. I honor their sacredness, their ability to know what's right for them. So when I say thank you, yeah, I get to take it in with so much gratitude and deep receptivity. And for me, I get to say thank you with deep humility, because receiving that feedback for me is just a reminder that I am just one piece of the big, gigantic puzzle. And again, it doesn't dishonor me or the work that I did. I just take it in and say, wow, thank you. I just received that. And of course, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I honor my sacredness, but also the sacredness of everybody that touched this program to make it impactful. That for me is how I stay grounded, reminding myself that I am one piece of the puzzle. And truthfully, the concept of like arrogance, so being afraid to take it in because we want to remain humble, what's the opposite of humility is arrogance, right? And truthfully, arrogance is a fear based emotion. It comes from a fear of being inferior. When you are afraid that you might be perceived as being inadequate or not good enough, especially when you're supposed to be the leader in the room, what do you tend to do? You tend to puff up. You tend to puff up because you want to give off this air of like, I know what's right, I know what to do, and that's arrogance. And so when you receive with deep gratitude, receiving with deep gratitude, that is a love-based response. That is the opposite of arrogance. So when you can receive in a space of being grounded, you do not need to be afraid that you will be perceived as arrogant, because that is the opposite of arrogance. Receive with deep gratitude. That is the opposite of arrogance. And the same is true for all the other fears. The fear of being lazy, for example, what if people keep telling me good job and I believe it? I receive it so much that I believe that I'm doing such a good job. Is it going to make me lazy? Is it going to make me less motivated? That is so fascinating to me. Because one thing I know for sure, that if you are drawn to this podcast and you are a listener, you are likely an incredible hard worker. I doubt there is 1 ounce of laziness inside of you. You might not even know how to start to be lazy or what it means to be lazy. It's so funny. I remember when I first started my leadership coaching and consulting business, I was still working full time as an ER physician, and I was also a physician leader. I was a medical director and a department chair, and I was a mom of two young kids. And I remember being at that time, imagine everything I was doing. I remember at that time being afraid to rest or to slow down out of fear that somebody might think I was lazy. I don't even know if I knew at the time how to be lazy. It's funny now to think about that because I see now how I was conditioned to believe that rest equaled laziness. And of course, laziness was immoral. It made me feel guilty, like, oh, I can't be lazy. What will people think? But being able again to receive with deep gratitude, especially the impact that we're making or anything that we receive with deep gratitude, our, financial reimbursements, our wealth, it will not make us lazy. In fact, what it will do is it will give us the genuine fuel that we need to keep going. What receiving allows us to do, especially when we just receive with so much gratitude, what it allows us to do is it's like giving us the oxygen and the nutrients that we need to keep going, to keep building the body of work, to continue to have an impact on the level of that we want to have, the impact that we want to have on the world. I think about this sometimes as like I have a lot of plants in my home. Okay, so follow me here with this example. I have plants all over my home and I love it because it's a really simple, easy way to increase the vibration and stay connected to the earth all around you. So I have plants everywhere. And I have beautiful plants. Some of them have beautiful flowers. And I was looking at one and I was admiring it. And I was thinking to myself, can you imagine if this beautiful plant in my home that I love so much with these beautiful flowers, if I was like, wow, thank you for bringing me so much joy. I love you so much. I want you to receive my gratitude because I'm going to give you, you know, I'm going to give you some nutrients and I'm going to give you water. I'm going to put you in front of the sun and give you water because I know you need that. And the plant is like, oh, no, 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 no. I cannot take that. I cannot receive that. I cannot receive the nutrients or the water or the sun you're going to give me. Can you imagine? Because what if the plant is like, if you give me that, I'll just get lazy and I'll stop being bright and beautiful. I'll stop bringing you joy. It's so silly, right? But this is somehow what we believe. If the plant stopped receiving, it's eventually going to stop growing. It's going to stop being beautiful and bright. It's going to burn out, literally. That's the same thing that will happen to us. So many of us are going, 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 working, 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 earning, 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 doing our and blocking ourselves from just having, from just receiving, from just being. And that, my friends, is how we cause burnout. Okay, I think we get it. But I want to just dive a little bit deeper here because, of course, that's how I roll. And I want to get into the historical context that has led to this collective trauma of receiving. And then I want to talk about what's happening to us physiologically in our brains. Okay, let's quickly talk about the historical context. So, okay, for most of human history, survival was our main goal. You had to make sure you had food, you had shelter, you had safety, which is why our brain is hardwired at doing two things, at keeping us alive and doing it as efficiently as possible. This is like even before there was the European colonization, communities faced famine, they faced war, they faced disease. And then, with colonization and displacement, receiving, especially receiving abundance or gifts, or even like leisure, even receiving rest was impossible or it was dangerous. And being too visible, especially if you weren't supposed to be, if you weren't the class that was supposed to have too much or be wealthy or be indulgent, it could make you a target. It could make you like a target for persecution or for violence. So, of course, for a very long time, it had not been safe to receive. And it's very interesting how this is still passed down. I was talking to my dad, who has had a really remarkable life. He was an immigrant, left a war torn country, worked his butt off. And I was asking him, what do you say to people when they tell you, oh, you must be so proud of your daughters, or you must be so proud of the life you lived? And he was like, huh. I don't talk about it. I change the subject. And I'm like, why, Dad? And he tells me, I don't want anyone to give me mal de ojo, the evil eye. He doesn't want anyone to give him the evil eye. And the evil eye, which you've probably heard of, is a traditional belief, not just in Latin America, but also through the Mediterranean and the Middle East and so many other cultures. Mal de ojo, or the evil eye, is this belief that someone can intentionally cause you harm by looking at you with envy or resentment or excessive admiration. That is fascinating, right? Like here it is right now, built into our culture, this belief that if if people see us receiving too much, or that if we have too much, if people think that we are receiving too much, we're too wealthy, then they're going to give us the evil eye. Fascinating, right? So let's fast forward a little bit here. During colonization, many indigenous communities across the world, including tribes across the world in Latin America and parts of Africa, even Iran, they often had these economies that were based on community reciprocity. And these economies were inherently gift based. So you do something nice for me, we give you a gift back. And with colonization, a lot of these communities and economies were shifted into this extraction based, production driven economies. So it shifted so much of this receiving and these gifts into, this concept of receiving without earning. Wow, well, that was demonized. That meant you were lazy. That meant you were uncivilized and you had to be productive. So if you wanted to earn, if you wanted to be worthy, you had to be productive. You had to really work for your worth. And of course, it created this subconscious belief that you constantly have to be producing, earning to prove your value. Otherwise, you are undeserving. And of course, it made it really hard for us to just receive. And instead, it pushed us to continue to earn. And if you feel guilty around receiving, which I know so many people do, this isn't just a thing of like people of color. This is so many people feel guilty from receiving. And a lot of this is tied to this like Protestant work ethic, especially in the United States and in Europe, this Puritan Protestant work ethic, this cultural mindset that emphasized self denial, emphasized hard work, and this moral superiority of earning over just receiving. And there was also this concept of grace, and grace for, the around during Puritan and Protestant work ethic, grace was framed as something that was given to you by God alone. So do not expect things to be easy. Only God can make it easy for you. And it's actually immoral for you to not work really hard. So, of course, you might feel guilty if you try to just receive. So, receiving without extreme effort was seen as sinful or it was seen as suspicious. Oh man, believe what you will, but my experience of a higher power is one of love and kindness and compassion, not one that shames us for receiving, especially when we're receiving with deep gratitude. Okay, so based on this historical context, and now you understand the collective trauma around receiving and where it comes from, I want to just briefly talk about what is happening to our brains and our bodies from a neuroscientific perspective. Okay, so in order to receive, in order for us to be wide open receivers, it requires us to be in what is known as a ventral vagal state. That essentially means that we have a very regulated nervous system. And a very regulated nervous system is a nervous system that feels safe. And a safe nervous system can be calm, it can be open, it can be trusting. However, if you are a descendant of someone that has experienced a collective trauma, like a Holocaust, a genocide, systemic oppression, or toxic puritanical beliefs, this will affect the way your genes are expressed. So, again, this is the science of what is called epigenetics, how your genes are expressed. And if you have inherited this kind of collective trauma, your genes express your genes are expressed in a way that it causes you to have a baseline dysregulated nervous system, which means that if you feel like you tilt towards anxious, I used to have a client that said, oh yeah, me and my family would just tilt towards anxious. And it turned out she comes from a long line of survivors of the Holocaust. And so you might have this baseline dysregulated nervous system, which means you're sort of stuck in the fight, flight, freeze response, that trauma response. So if you've ever wondered why you might run a little bit more anxious or overwhelmed or stressed, this might be why. And if this is the case, then of course, receiving is not something that's going to be easy for you. It's going to feel unsafe because it's hard for you to even create safety because your nervous system is not regulated. And the body perceives the sense of relaxation, like actually relaxing or having pleasure or abundance, as dangerous. If you have a baseline dysregulated nervous system, relaxation feels uncomfortable, unsustainable, and dangerous. Pleasure, abundance, joy feels dangerous and unsustainable. This is why I often tell a lot of my clients who these are like hardworking, high functioning, high achieving leaders and entrepreneurs. When they come to me and we are able to get them out of this dysregulated nervous system and these like patterns that have kept them stuck and overworking and under experiencing, under receiving, when we get them to move out of that, I feel like it's a huge sense of accomplishment, especially for my clients that come from collective trauma, because can you imagine the amount of work we get to do to calm down your nervous system? You are not just healing that for yourself, you're healing that for all of the generations before you that couldn't have healed that for themselves. They didn't have the luxury to do it. But now you have the luxury to do it. And it's really powerful because the other thing that this dysregulated nervous system causes for us, so if you've experienced this collective kind of trauma, what ends up happening is that our brain gets rewired towards this scarcity consciousness or a scarcity mindset. And scarcity mindset, this has been researched a lot. What has been shown is that you are wired towards the scarcity mindset, which means your amygdala, your fear center, has this heightened level of activity. So it's hypertrophied, it gets bigger in size. The fear center is bigger. And you have a lower level of activity in your prefrontal cortex. So your prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain that separates you from all other mammals. And that's the part of your brain that supports you in trusting and feeling psychologically safe. So that's under regulate, not that's under performing. So that's not as strong, but your amygdala is very strong. It's hypertrophied. It's working overtime. So again, you have a combination of nervous system dysregulation and scarcity brain wiring. So of course, it's hard for you to just relax, receive. So I share all of that so that if you're experiencing any of this, number one, I want you to know, sweet friends, you are not alone. And to hopefully give you an understanding as to why this has developed. I want you to know where this has come from and why this has developed for you. And though for many of us, we inherited this, this was never our fault. We inherited this. And even though we've inherited it, I want us to know today that we have agency, we have choice, and we don't have to continue to live like this. We don't have to continue to run anxious or have that scarcity mindset. We can work through that and we can practice receiving. So, for those of you who want to start practicing receiving, I want to leave you today with one very easy practice you can start doing now. And listen, there are many receiving practices that I could have walked you through today. I walk my students through so many of them, so we are barely scratching the surface today. But I want to leave you with at least one thing that you can start doing now that in my experience is pretty simple and easy to grasp, so you can start doing it now. And what I call it this micro receiving practice. So here's what it is. What you get to do is you get to start practicing throughout your day all the tiny little small things that you are receiving, tiny small things like it's warm outside and there's sunlight beating on your face. Ooh, I receive the sunlight. I fully receive this. That's what you get to say when you receive it. You get a compliment. Someone says, oh, I really like the way you mentioned blah, blah, blah in that meeting. In your mind, you say, I fully receive this. To them, you can say, thank you. Thank you. And in your mind, you're telling yourself, I fully receive this. Maybe you have a good meal. Maybe you get a smile from a stranger. Maybe somebody brings you clean, beautiful drinking water. You get to pause and you either say to yourself out loud if you can, or you say it to yourself internally, I fully receive this. Thank you. I fully receive this with gratitude. So for me, when I started practicing this one, I would put my right hand over my heart space, and I would just lean into that with gratitude and say, I fully receive this. Thank you. Now, one thing I'd like for you to add to this is a softening of your body. So, what I mean by that is when you are fully receiving, I put my hand over my heart. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, but I put my hand over my heart and I relax my shoulders. I relax my jaw because I tend to clench my jaw. I relax my chest and I just make sure that my body feels a little softer. Now, the reason why you want to relax your body as you are also practicing the receiving is that it does two things. Number one, just going through the day and what we call letting in the good in the world of neuroplasticity. When you let in the good, just that by itself builds neuroplasticity. That by itself will rewire your brain. These small, repeated experiences of safe receiving rewires your brain. But the softening, every time you do it, but you also soften your body, that signals to your nervous system safety. Every time you pause, you let in and you soften your body, it turns off the amygdala, your sense of hypervigilance of always being on. It down regulates that. So it signals nervous system to your body. So to do both at the same time, signaling safety while you are also practicing receiving, of course, what is it doing? It's signaling to your mind and to your body that it is safe to receive. So that's it. It's a micro receiving practice. And you want to do this effectively. You want to do it for at least, I would say, 10 to 14 days. Every time you do one of these practices that I teach you on this podcast, just know doing it once is going to be good, but the effect will probably wear off. Doing it a few times a day, it's going to be more effective. Doing it 3 to 4 times a day consistently for at least 10 days, it's going to have an even bigger effect. And you don't have to take my word for it. Of course, go try this for yourself and just notice how these small, simple practices can have profound effects on your life. Okay, so I think of the work that we're doing here. I think of this work that we're doing through all of these podcast episodes, including this one, the simple act of receiving, as an act of reclamation. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that when we do these things, we are getting to reclaim the most authentic version of ourselves, the version of ourselves before the fear responses set in, before the collective trauma, all those parts of us that are connected to something so much larger than who we are, to a universal consciousness, if you want to say, to something that is grounded in love. That is what we get to do when we do these things. And when we can connect with that authentic part of ourselves, what happens? It means that we are leading from a more intentional, authentic part of ourselves. It means that we are creating in our businesses, in our careers, the services that we are offering are aligned with the most authentic parts of ourselves. And that right there, that's Dharma. That's you living your Dharma, your purpose. It's powerful work. So, sweet friends, next time you are offered a compliment, you are offered an opportunity, you are offered money, even a moment to just rest, I invite you to really soften into it, to lean into it instead of deflecting it away. Practice receiving with deep gratitude, not just because you deserve it or you need to deserve it, but yes, that's true, but because again, receiving is a love-based action. And it opens you up to more gifts from the universe. It signals to the universe that you are open to receiving. It signals to your mind, to your body, that it is safe to receive. It's also how we honor all of the people that came before us, all of our ancestors that came before us, who did not have the time, the space, the luxury, the safety to receive, to heal their nervous system. We get to do that work. And that's in deep reverence to the people that came before us. And of course, it's how we build the kind of future we want for our kids and all the generations that come after us, where joy and abundance is safe. It's safe for everyone to be with joy, to be with abundance, to hold that. That is the world I want for my kids, and that is the vision that I have for the world. So, sweet friends, I just invite you to join me in helping me create that by you just every day practicing in the small ways that you can, receiving, receiving, receiving. All right, sweet friends, we covered a lot today. We talked all about why receiving really matters, how there's this collective trauma around it and where it came from historically, what happens to our mind and our bodies when we block ourselves from receiving or when we've experienced this collective trauma. And I shared with you one small practice you can start doing now to start receiving today. All right, sweet friends, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will see you next time. Adios.